But you mentioned the influence of the gentleman that was at Mr. Letica. Was that your eye-opening experience of like the entrepreneurial world where this guy came from nowhere and built this thing and now is worth $500 million and I don't even know, I just found out who this guy was, or what was the number one or two things because that seemed pretty influential. Maybe threw some gasoline on your fire as a upcoming entrepreneur, right? What were one or two things you took from that extraordinary story?
Well, he had a strength of will like nobody I had ever known. And he wasn't polished. I mean, he was going to make it happen. And he did. And some of the tactics that he used were not ones I would want to adopt.
Questionable.
Right. However, it worked. And so the one thing that I really learned, you hear that no isn't no, it's just not now.
Right.
He lived that. Matter of fact, I can tell you a funny story that with him. He'd come in, little guy, and he had all this energy, and I didn't. My first few years there, I'm a national sales manager. I had a buffer. I had a VP of sales and marketing I reported to. When I became the VP of sales and marketing, I became his whipping boy, right? Just like the VP of finance, just like the VP of operations. And so he just kind of went around and yelled and swore, and and that was his style. So he comes in and he says, Dean Foods, we were bidding on that business, and Dean Foods bought millions of dollars of 5-gallon pickle pails and they packed pickles in these 5-gallon pails that we injection molded, and they went to McDonald's and Wendy's and everywhere in the world. And so he says, I understand we didn't get the Dean's Foods business. I said, no, we didn't. He says, how'd you lose that business? I said, well, we didn't lose it. We didn't have it. You can't lose something you don't have. And he said, you lost that business. He said, years ago, we used to do every single package for Dean Foods. He said, you lost it. I said, well, since I've been here, we haven't sold Dean Foods a thing. He says, Graff, you lost that business and you got to go get it. And he says, aren't you going to that dairy conference? I said, yeah, I'm taking off tomorrow. He says, well, you don't come back from that dairy conference without Dean Foods business. You come back without the business, you're not employed. Oof. I said, really? I said, yeah. Okay. So I go to the conference, and I have a few of my people that are in the dairy business that work for me that are there.
Wow.
And it's a huge conference, and all these people are there, and I'm looking for the Dean Foods guys. And I find Howard Dean. Howard Dean's the man, right? And Howard Dean has an entourage of people around him.
Right.
And I'm standing around the circle waiting to get in, and I can't get in. Everybody wants to visit with him, and then he has his entourage, and all of a sudden we're at a cocktail party right after the end of the conference, one of the days, and I see him bust off and beeline to the restroom. So I pulled up in the urinal next to him.
Oh, wow.
This is good.
Introduced myself, told him Elia Letica said hello, because Elia and him had a long-time relationship, because Elia had sold him packaging way back in the day. And so we're coming out, and I said, I'm in a funny spot. He says, what's that? I said, you used to buy packaging from us, and you don't anymore. And he says, yeah, and I'm not sure why that's happened. And I said, well, Elia's not sure either. And we really need to figure out a way to do this. And he said, well, and I said, you just had something out for bid, and I think it's been awarded. He says, well, let me look into that. And he reopened it.
Wow.
And, we ended up getting the business. But the funny part was
No kidding.
I show up, the following week in my office, and Elia comes zipping in, and so how'd the conference go? I said, well, went pretty well. And he said, so did you say hi to Howard Dean for me? I said, I did. As a matter of fact, I said, I told him how disheartened you were that we weren't selling and packaging anymore. He decided to reopen that bid for us. And he looks at me, he says, you're kidding me. I said, well, I wanted to stay employed. He says, what are you talking about? I said, you told me I couldn't come back. I mean, he didn't even remember.
Yeah.
He threatened my job. I got little kids. I need work. I remembered.
Yeah.
You know, he didn't even remember. He told me I couldn't come back.
That's an amazing story. The urinal?
So you know, through the years, there are people that are influential, and you learn things from them, good and bad. I learned good and bad from him, but I learned that no just means not now, for sure.